Hey, I'm Barron and Comess.
And I'm Chris Barron, and we're Spin Doctors.
And you're watching LifeMinute TV.
It's been 12 years since legendary rock, funk, blues, alt rocker Spin Doctors dropped a new album, their first with Capitol Records, and a brand new bassist. Yep, this pivotal four-piece band is back in a big way with Face Full of Cake, full of fun hooks and the funky sound they're known and loved for. Formed in '88 in New York City, they burst into the mainstream with their full-length '91 debut, Pocket Full of Kryptonite, selling more than 10 million copies worldwide, with several massive singles that are ubiquitous to this day. Singer-songwriter Chris Barron and drummer Barron and Comess came by the LifeMinute studios to tell us all about it. Plus their upcoming summer tour with Blues Traveler and Gym Blossoms. This is a Life Minute with the Spin Doctors.
Spin Doctors in the house.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us on Life Minute. So happy to have you guys.
Thanks for having us. This is so fun.
We're having a ball already. We had fun before we started.
Yeah. Yeah, we were what do the young people say? We were like dishing tea or whatever.
Got all those good cookies that we didn't eat.
All right, Face Full of Cake. Gosh, your first album, 12 years, is it?
Yep.
Wow, what took so long?
Yeah, Aaron, what took so long? Why did we
like
even
to
do
take our time, you know? We've just been busy playing a lot of concerts, and it just took a while to sort of get us all together in a room writing together again. You know, I think if you look at our historically through our career, we're a very prolific band, but we have little periods where we end up getting together, writing a lot of songs together. Like in the beginning of the band, it was just, when we were forming and getting all our stuff together, we probably had like 50 songs, the first couple years. And then like the best of those sort of went on the record, first couple records, and it's just we've been busy, and but we did get together like right around the pandemic. I think that was sort of the thing that got us inspired, once things sort of cleared up a little bit and it was okay to get back together. We started doing some writing sessions. We, split up in different groups. Eric and Chris got together. Me and Chris got together. The three of us got together.
And then I got together with myself alone.
He got together with himself, and we ended up with just a bunch of really good songs. So we decided to go in the studio. Jack Daley, who's our new bass player, has a great studio in Asbury Park. And the idea was just to go record some demos, just to get them down and see what we got. And because of that, it was just a really relaxed environment, and it just went great. And a couple of days into it, we were like, wow, this sounds amazing. I think this is it. I think we're making our record here. And that was it. A couple weeks later, we had a record.
It is great. It sounds awesome.
Thank you.
It sounds like you guys, but maybe heavier or,
Yeah.
It's excellent. It's very
Cool.
good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I hope your viewers will check it out. Can I talk into that camera? Listen, if you check out our record and you don't like it, you come and find Aaron and he will give you your money back. We've been working together for 35 years, and when somebody's that ubiquitous in your life, you just kind of tend to, I guess, take them for granted a little bit, And during lockdown, I hadn't gone 18 months without seeing these guys in forever, And so for me, it was like, we got out of lockdown and it was like, let's make a record. Let's get together. Let's do some writing. Like, life is short. You never know, like, what's going to happen. It was one of the big revelations for me.
How does it work for you guys creatively? Like, what's the process like? Do you write the lyrics first, or? As
a songwriter, I'm really lucky. On this particular album, I wrote the music and lyrics for like 4 or 5 of the songs. Aaron composed the music, and I wrote the lyrics. I write the lyrics, right, basically. And so Eric wrote the music on some, like several of the songs too. So I'm really lucky because I can sit down and I can write a song and hand it off to these guys, and they'll like take my song and turn it into like a killer Spin Doctors song. Or I can just sit around and write lyrics and not worry about music at all, and know that Aaron is a brilliant composer, and I'm sure a lot of your favorite songs Aaron composed the music to. And so I can, we get together and I'm just like, he'll play me something and I'll be like, I think I got something for that. And I'll like put lyrics to it and a melody. And same with Eric, It's a little different with Aaron and Eric. When I get together with Aaron, Aaron's like musical pieces are often characterized by really odd time signatures and rhythmically. So he sort of has to teach me the music of it, because a lot of times I'm like, wait, where does it start? And Aaron has to kind of like show me like how it all works, and then I'm kind of like finding my way through it. Whereas Eric is just like, what do you got? And I'm like, how about this? And I just start singing, and Eric will instantaneously be able to accompany what I'm doing and just come up with music for it, like on the spot. So
But it's cool. I think one of the things that makes our records diverse, there's different styles of music that all make the Spin Doctors, and that's because of what Chris just said, because everybody contributes a certain amount. If it was all Chris's songs, that'd be great, but it'd be, it's just there's more different types of styles that are thrown into the pot and I really appreciate it. I mean, I'm the drummer in the band, so it's like usually drummers don't get to write songs, and but I play guitar and write music, so I really appreciate that Chris has been, really into collaborating with me. And Eric too, as the guitar player, for me to hand off something I wrote on guitar to him. And me and Eric also get together and do stuff and then bring it in.
Yeah,
so it's just all those combinations, And over the years, sometimes we'll just write songs a lot of our songs, especially in the early days, were just written on stage, because we jam out and improvise a lot on stage. And particularly in the old days, we would play 4-hour shows. We do 3 sets. So sometimes the third set, we would just be up there messing around. And a lot of songs got written that way.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
yeah, like
Yeah.
on our first record, the song "What Time Is It" just spontaneously came together.
What time is it? 4:30.
What time is it? 4:30. It's not late. It's early, and it was 4:30 in the morning, and I turned to our friend Darren Green and was like, what time is it? And he was like, 4:30, and then Eric just started playing this thing, and I was like, what time is it? 4:30. It's not late. It's early, and that's how that song came together, is spontaneously.
Yeah, I mean, Chris has always had an amazing ability to just improvise lyrics on the spot. So we were able to do that. And same thing with the writing. Like sometimes I know stuff we've written. I mean, usually I come in with a pretty complete piece of music, and Chris, there's been a lot of times where he'd just come up with lyrics right there. He might ask me, "Were you thinking about anything when you wrote this?" But a lot of times, or sometimes he'll go into his book and find something he's already written that fits, But I mean, he has an amazing ability to just write right on the spot. And almost every time we've gotten together, when the time was right, there's certainly been periods where the vibe just wasn't there, But like this last period, and a lot of different periods over the years, I mean, we always come out with a song, I've never been, only a few times has it been like, all right, well, we always come out with a completed song, So, and I figured out this time to get him over, I just have to offer to make him dinner after.
We one of the big sessions that we did where we wrote "Still a Gorilla" from this new record. And "Holding the Moon Over Me."
While you're holding the moon, holding the moon, holding the moon over me.
I'm sort of lazy, so Aaron was like, all right, let's get together and write. And I was like, cool, what do you want to do? He was like, what do you want to do? I was like, why don't you come over to my house? And he was like, okay, great. Because Aaron's super easygoing and probably the coolest guy in the band. And the night before, that morning I call Aaron and I was like, hey, how about I come over to your house and we write, and then Lindsay will come over later, my wife, and you guys can make us dinner. And he was like, sure, man. And so we just went over. We went over. We wrote a couple songs. Yeah. Lindsay showed up around 6. We had a martini and
3 hours later. 3 hours later, we had 2 songs and we were eating. It was
What'd
great.
you make?
What did I make that
You
night?
made a killer steak. You made a steak, and you made a tuna tartare with avocado in it. It was gorgeous. And then we had martinis and a great bottle of wine. And then
So that's how I do it now. So then about a month later, I was like, hey, come on over.
Come on over, I'll make you dinner.
It's like the reward, You write a good song, you get a dinner.
But I think if I was watching this show right now, I'd be like, okay, Spin Doctors, those guys have been around forever. Bands, their early stuff is always the best stuff. Why should I check out this record? It's probably just going to be some rehashed, whatever stuff. We have been committed always to getting better as musicians and getting better as writers. One of the reasons that happens, you continuously hear people saying oh, I like the early stuff, but they don't like the later stuff as much, is I think that when you're early, especially if you have a little success, you start to try and repeat that success. And the trick is sort of understanding what's good about your style and your personality as a writer and keeping that in there, but also continually honing your skills. And we've tried really hard. Aaron's always practicing the drums. He's always like working on new ideas musically. You don't want to keep trying to do the same thing that pleased people 30 years ago when you were young. You want to kind of hone in and pursue your personality and the things that were good about what you did, but not like to do the same trick over and over and over again. So.
Yeah, I mean, we've always had our best results when you don't think about it. I mean, I think really that's the trick to most art is like, just be yourself. Anytime you're trying to sort of repeat something you did or trying to be like somebody else that you think is popular, I mean, it's always a mistake. I mean, when we came out, at the time, it's not like we were reinventing the wheel, but there wasn't a lot of stuff that really sounded like us. And, the record company didn't really know what to do with us. They're like, you guys need some tattoos. You have no image, and you have no singles. It didn't, and we had something unique just by being ourselves, and that's really the same thing now. Don't think about it, just do what you do. And I think we were able to really do that on this record. We really were. And it feels really good. And it's really helped our live show. It's nice to have a bunch of new material to play live. It goes over really well. And, it's not like we're slamming it down our throats. I mean, people come out and see us, they're going to hear everything they want to hear. But you sort of figure out what songs really work. And to me, like the mark of a successful song or a successful record is if 2 or 3 songs, like if we're sitting here in 3 years and 2 or 3 songs from this record, we're still playing live, to me, that's like success. And there's like a couple songs, like when we go back to all our other reckers, like Nice Talking to Me, there's a couple songs from that, like Margarita and Nice Talking to Me and Sugar, that stand out. But you have to think about the people that come to see you too, and not be self-indulgent.
Yeah, and if you come and see a Spin Doctor show, we're gonna play Little Miss Can't Be Wrong. We're gonna play Two Princes. Like we always play the hits. I mean, I did a solo show like years ago and I didn't play Two Princes. And somebody came up to me afterwards and they were like, I drove 10 hours to hear that song. And I was like, okay, cool. You know what? Just gonna do that. Like, and I mean, we like playing those songs too.
Yeah, people come to
it's not like
expect
we're
them,
like, oh, you have to play the hit again. People always say, do you get tired of playing the hits? And we're like, sorry, do I get tired of playing a song I wrote and watching people go nuts? Like, no, we don't get tired of that.
Yeah, you want to get a reaction out of an audience, And so we're lucky to have those songs. They've kept us going all these years. And we're lucky to have this new record. I mean, like a song like Gorilla, it's one of the songs off the new record that, I mean, we've been playing it live for a couple years now before we put it out. And it just slays every night, So to have something like that that's new and you just see to have it just work so well, it's like a gift,
Yeah, and it's to go back to like what we were talking about earlier, it's an opportunity to kind of triangulate what you're doing and people can see the connection of this like heavy song to the poppy stuff and how it's the same band and how all these things kind of come together. And basically, I think one of the great things about this band and one of the things I'd like to sort of expand on is that we're known for these 2 very poppy songs. But we really, I mean, honestly, like I think we have like a huge trove of absolutely unbelievable material. People think they're going to come out and see a Spin Doctor show and they're just going to like hang out for these 2 songs. But we don't have any bad songs. We don't play bad songs. We're, the band is, and if you come out to a show and you don't think our songs are any good, just find Aaron and he'll give you your money back. No, I'll give you your money back.
But your tour with Gin Blossoms and Blues Traveler,
Yep.
yeah, okay. You used to be in Blues Traveler.
I was in an early incarnation of Blues Traveler before it was called Blues Traveler. Yes, John Popper and I went to high school together. And let me tell you, that guy played like that in high school.
Wow.
It was amazing going to high school, being like, 15 years old, he was 16, and actually meeting somebody and knowing somebody who you absolutely knew for certain was going to be extremely famous. It was really cool, and it kind of like, for me as a guy who was like, maybe I'll join the Navy, or, I mean, like sort of like didn't know how I was gonna like get through life, because I did really badly in school, But knowing a guy like John, it kind of busted the horizons of what you thought was possible for a person that you knew or yourself to do, So It's gonna be really fun being out with those guys because I went to high school with all those guys, and we're just gonna be like trooping around on buses.
And we've toured a lot with both of them. We've done a lot of touring with Jim Blossoms, a lot of touring with Blues Traveler. You know, as Chris said, he grew up with them, and we both come from New York City. So
we've known the Jim Blossoms for over 30 years now too. So, you know, it's gonna be like
great.
3 bands of like old buddies out on the road throwing down. We'll definitely be sitting in on each other's sets, and there'll be like guest appearances. And
we just went out to Rob in the Center for Jim Blossom's studio yesterday and did like a collaboration. We did a song together. We're gonna, you know, so that'll be like out on Instagram probably. Just like a little, but there's gonna be a lot of good times. It's gonna be fun, and I think the people who come out are gonna really enjoy it.
And it's sold. It's some of the shows are sold out too.
It's selling well.
So like,
get your tickets.
Go get your tickets.
Awesome. And where else are you going to be hitting? A couple big festivals too.
Yes.
Yeah, we're doing a bunch of them. We just did Boston Calling, which was great. We're doing Bourbon and Beyond. We're doing, what's the other one we're doing? Ocean's Calling.
Ocean's Calling. Yes, Ocean's Calling.
And then we have a bunch of our own headlining shows outside of this. We're going to play the whole new record, Face Full of Cake, in its entirety.
Why that title, Face Full of Cake?
Well, you know, it's funny. Every record we've ever made, for the most part, we've always had a title, a working title, and then it changes, and we end up with like 10 titles. Yeah, that's it. Now maybe then. So this one originally, right after we recorded, we were going to call it Rock and Roll Heaven. That was like the working title for the longest time, and then we just decided to call it Boombox. But then we realized there's like a million records called Boombox. Then we were going to call it Gorilla. And then we weren't sure about that. And then I called Chris. I said, do me a favor, send me all the lyrics. I just wanted to read through the lyrics. Because you know, sometimes record titles, it's like a line in a song. Like Pocket Full of Kryptonite is a line of a song. Or I always thought Jagged Little Pill by Alanis Morissette was a really great title. And I'll never forget the first time I never knew why it was called that. And then when she put out that single, I remember hearing it on the radio when she said the line Jagged Little Pill. It was just so cool. So Face Full of Cake is a lyric in the song Double Parked.
Foot on the brake and a face full of cake.
Which is a really great set of lyrics. And it's just sort of a funny, you know, thing, Face Full of Cake. So it was between that and Gorilla for a long time. And Gorilla was kind of leading, right, for a long time. And then we were out for dinner one night, and we just asked everybody, like at the bar and the restaurant, all the people we were with, and Face Full of Cake just like came out on top.
Because we were sort of like, can we call it Face Full of Cake? That's so, like, I don't know, because we were like Gorilla, like seems like really punchy and commercial, and then we were like, Aaron was like, what about Face Full of Cake? And I was like, I love that, but can we just call it that? And I mentioned it to my wife. She was like, definitely, yes, that you should totally call it. I was like, really? And then, yeah, we went out to dinner that night and we asked everybody.
You know? It's funny, and we've never taken ourselves seriously. We're definitely not. I mean, we're very serious about what we do, but we're not like walking around all like we're cool and you know what I mean? So it's
we don't
pie in the face. It's a joke, kind of. You know, it's like I think it
self-deprecating.
Really,
Pocket Full of Kryptonite, Face Full of Cake. That's an important point that Aaron made, which is like, we take what we do seriously. We take music seriously. We take the fact that people bought a ticket to our show and we're like sober and ready to play and prepared. Incidentally, there's no, you know, computerized anything at our shows. There's no playback. There's no pitch correction. You come out and see a Spin Doctors show, you're going to watch 4 people playing the music that you are hearing. We take what we do seriously, but we don't take ourselves seriously. We're happy. I'm certainly happy to be like an object of ridicule and that goofy guy in the hat, you know, from that video long ago. I don't mind being like that funny guy from the Spin Doctors. But, you know, the truth is, like, that's fine and everything, but, like, you know, I can sing, he can play. You know, the other guys they're 3 of the best musicians of their era, with hands down. And Face Full of Cake, man. Pocket Full of Kryptonite, Face Full of Cake. And it did seem like kind of a quip sort of answer to Pocket Full of Kryptonite, too.
Yeah, cool. Any other favorites besides Gorilla on the new that we want to touch on?
Boombox.
She had a boombox, baby, boom, boom.
I like the Buddha on the Lawn.
You can bring the pink flamingo in from the driveway. A bunch of leaves, a Buddha on the lawn.
It's kind of a funny, odd song. We have this thing, and I think one of the things that characterizes Spin Doctor songs is we have these songs that are like, why wouldn't anybody write a song about that? But you love it, you know, and like Two Princes is such a weird song. Like 1, 2, princes kneel before you, princes who adore you. Like I actually like wrote those 2 lines when I was 19. I wrote the song when I was 19. I got to those 2 lines, I was like, this is stupid. And I almost stopped writing the song, and I was just like, nah, just like, just finish the song and see what happens. And half an hour later, I had ensured that I would never have to have a real job again. I didn't know that at the time. But The Boot on the Lawn is a song about like in the 70s, and there's like a dad who's like obsessed with lawn ornaments, but it's just like my funny kind of take on the situation like that. I liked you better when your butt was big.
That's a funny one.
I liked you better when your butt was big. I liked you better when your butt was big.
That actually was about somebody that I had known. But it's sort of a combination. We also have another song called Big Fat Funky Booty. It's just like, butts are funny, Butts, you just put a butt in a song and you just like, if you play your cards right, you're gonna have a great song. But like,
It's an example of the very silly, stupid side of the band.
Yes, yeah.
We're like, like we were saying before. I mean, we have all these serious songs, and we're not afraid to have some just ridiculous songs, which we do.
Yeah.
And it's fun, right?
It is fun.
Yeah. I don't know who that song's about though.
Well, I'll tell you later.
Yeah, tell me later.
I'll tell you later.
I don't know.
I'll tell you later. Rock and Roll Heaven, I think, is kind of a cool song.
The amps go up to 11 and rock and roll heaven.
It's, a vision of a rock and roll afterlife, and if you listen to the lyrics, there's some really kind of a funny comment on the difficulties of being a musician, and of course in this vision of a rock and roll heaven, all these problems are solved. But it's like there's breakfast all day in every town, and every seat in the van goes down, and the promoter's got a pizza and all your bread, and every Zeppelin is made of lead, and it's just like it goes through all these things that musicians sort of deal with on a day-to-day basis. But the guitar strings all change themselves, and part of songwriting, people will say to me like, "Oh, that'd make a great song. You should write that," and I'll say, "You should write that," because it's not a good idea for a song. It's taken me a lifetime to sort of like have an instinct of like what. If you go through my notebooks, you can see like my early stuff. You can see me like kind of tracing down a song idea. And you're like, that could have worked out, but I can see why like that was abandoned. But now I'm like, at this point in my career, like one of the things, you get really good at is like knowing when you go down to Nashville and you like go into a songwriting session, you sit down with these seasoned writers, and you just sit there and you just like chat, and eventually you can feel the conversation like moving towards a song idea, and eventually, these great Nashville writers, they'll be like, oh, there's a song in that.
So is there a book somewhere with all your gems that you haven't done anything with?
I have like 3 shelves, that are full of like notebooks that I've filled.
Were you self-taught? Did you always know you could play?
I'm not self-taught. I mean, I've been interested in music since I was really young. Started playing classical piano, and when I was 9, I told my parents I wanted to take drum lessons. So they found this guy named Jack Daley that turned out to be an amazing drum teacher. And I've studied all through school and high school. I had private lessons, and I went to a performing arts high school. And then I went to Berkeley for a year, and then I went to New School where I met these guys. So I consider myself like somewhat natural. Like it's never been hard for me, but I put in a lot of work and a lot of study, and I've had a lot of teaching. So yes, I'm not.
And tons of practice.
Yeah, I practice very.
He's a practicing fiend.
I put in. They say you're supposed to put in 10,000 hours of anything before you're really ready for prime time. And I definitely, by the time I met these guys, I put in my 10,000
easily
for sure. Regardless of whether you're self-taught or you're studying or whatever it is, you need to put in the time. There's no way around that for sure.
What about you, Chris?
I'm a mixture. I sang in choir in high school, and I took like music theory, and I can't really read music, but I can decipher music. As a lyricist, my brother, who passed away last year, he was something of a genius, and he was sort of like a literature professor for me, and I'm dyslexic, so it's really hard for me to read. But really the upshoot of me being dyslexic is it's like just as hard for me to read like Romeo and Juliet as it is for me to read like a Michael Crichton beach novel. So I've just always gravitated towards this kind of like heavy literature. So my brother kind of like My brother kind of guided me through a lot of literature. My brother was like also very, very brilliant, and just he's a mathematician, but he knew a lot of literature, and he would just be like, okay, now you need to read, Thomas Pynchon, Gravity's Rainbow. Now you need to read like James Joyce, Portrait of the Artist of a Young Man. He would just like get me to read stuff. I think I'm kind of unusual for a rock and roll lyricist. I didn't go to school for literature, but I think my brother was even better because I could go to him and ask him questions about stuff. And my brother wasn't the kind of guy who would just regurgitate stuff. He would give you this fully synthesized and educated take on whatever it was you were asking him about. So I kind of got lucky. It was like, my brother's a genius, autodidact, and self-taught, genius, and I was, like the dyslexic, big brother who would be like just reading everything that he told me to read. So, I'm sort of a mixture of self-taught and highly trained.
New bassist, how is that going?
Yeah, we have a new bassist, Jack Daley, who's amazing. I've known Jack for a long time, and before he joined us, I'd played with him in a lot of other different musical situations. So it was a real easy fit. Chris knew him as well. They at least used to live in the Red Square apartment building together. Jack's played with a ton of people. He played in Lenny Kravitz's band for a long time, for like 15 years, from like the 90s. He's a member of Little Steven's band. He even filled in on Saturday Night Live with Bruce Springsteen when their bass player couldn't make it during COVID. So he has a really long discography, and he's a super cool guy. And it's hard, to change members. It can go either way, because we've always been a band where everybody, had a real big part of the sound. Mark, our original bass player, is a great bass player and huge contributor to our sound. So it's hard to replace that. And Jack came in, and we told him, just do your thing. It's not about trying to sound like, you got your own sound. And he's great at sort of respecting the parts that are important to a song, but making them his own. And he's been great. And it's cool that we were able to record a record with him so quickly and have new songs that he was part of to take out on the road. It just made it feel, really authentic from the get-go. So Jack's great. We're really lucky to have him.
He and I lived in a kind of legendary apartment building called Red Square in Alphabet City in the 90s. And he was in Lenny Kravitz's band, and I was, the guy from the Spin Doctors. We would see each other in the elevator in the morning, and we were like chatting kind of friends, And he would be in the elevator, and he'd be wearing like a bone breastplate, sort of Native American thing, and like these leather pants that went up the side, and like cowboy boots with long and like turquoise everywhere, and just like put together, and just like a rail. And I'd have just like woken up and done like 9 bong hits, and it'd be like, 9 in the morning, I'd be like super stoned, and I don't do anything anymore, but, and I'd be like, there'd be like, ink spots from writing with fountain pen on my fingers, and maybe an ink spot on my nose, and I was wearing torn up jeans and like an old t-shirt, and we'd just be like looking at each other like across the elevator, and I was like, I always thought like, this guy is so cool. And we would like chat and talk, and we were definitely like really friendly. And when he got back in the band, I told him that story, and he was like, yeah, man, I was looking at you going like, who is this guy? He's so cool as well. Aww. Second, like we stood on stage together at Soundcheck, all of those great memories came flooding back, and then we just played like Soundcheck, and by the end of Soundcheck, I was like, this guy is the greatest. So we're really lucky. As Aaron said, it doesn't always work out, especially with a quartet and you're changing somebody. But Jack is just, we're really lucky to have him. The guy's a huge rock star, the people that he's played with and stuff like that. And also we just love him. He's such a great guy.
What do you guys like to do when you're not working?
Aaron's a fantastic cook.
I enjoy cooking, yeah.
And your food looks good too.
Yeah, I have an aesthetic. I like, it's got to taste good most importantly, but I love the whole thing of like if I have a day off, like going to the store, going to, seeing what looks good that day, and then, putting a meal together, going home, prepping it, cooking it, shaking up a nice martini, sending these guys a picture of my
we love it. We love
beautiful meal.
We all take pictures of our dinners, and like, I'm like, that looks tasty. Mine's like, yum. And like, Eric is like, yeah, that looks yummy. And Aaron's just like, oh, well, I want to go to that restaurant, I recently, when I was a kid, my grandfather taught me about film photography. So last year, when I was feeling, really sad about losing my brother, I was at a flea market and I saw a camera on a table and I bought the camera. And so I got back into film photography, and I've been taking classes down at the International Center of Photography and learning how to develop negatives and make prints and stuff like that. So.
And you guys are New York icons. What do you love about New York? What do you do in New York? What are your favorite
Oh
things
man,
to
New York's
do?
the best. I mean, we've been living here since the band formed, you know.
Yeah.
And most people, you know, it's a tough city to stay in. I mean, you know, most people come in for a while and move out, and that's all good. And you know, Eric moved back to Toronto. Jack lives down in Asbury Park. Me and Chris, we've just stayed here. I just love it. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like, you know, we've traveled all over the world. There's some amazing cities, but I think New York's just my favorite. You know, I
Me
just
too.
love the people here are so great. You know, there's just so much to do. Great food town, beautiful architecture. You know, just the vibe. And for a musician, it's really one of the best places to be. I mean, I love to play music with people around the city and do stuff. And you know, I mean, I moved here basically because I wanted to be, you know, I wanted to have a career in music, but I also wanted to be around the best musicians in the world because I figured that was going to make me better. You know, and I still feel that to this day. You know, it's like. It keeps you can't just sort of rest on your laurels in a town like New York.
Yeah.
You got to stay sharp because there's all our friends our age are great, and then there's all these young people that are just incredible, and then there's the people generation ahead of us, you know. So it's like we're sort of right in the middle now. It's kind of a really cool, it's kind of an inspiring time because, you know, I can get inspiration from all these great young, you know, musicians, of course, all the older ones that are still around, and then all our people our own age. So. That's why I came here. That's really what keeps me here, to be honest.
There's also, you know, theater here too. My wife's a musical theater actress, Lindsay Nicole Chambers, and she's like a comedic genius, you know, as well as being here for my music. It's like my wife as a theater actress. Just love theater. If you're watching this from out of town, you got to come to New York and see a show. If you come to New York, people always are like, oh, I'm going to New York. I'm like, you can go see a show? And usually they are, but if they're not, I'm like, you gotta go and see a show. It's like one of those things that, you know, it's like going to Orlando and not going to Disney
Right.
World, you know?
Yeah.
New York has so much personality. When I was a kid, like middle school and high school, I lived in Princeton, New Jersey, where the Blues Traveler are from, and John Lithgow and some other like really famous, cool, B.B. Newworth went to the same middle school as me. And there was like this abandoned like observation tower way out in these like cornfields. We used to drive like a half an hour to get to this observation tower. It had like all these like signs like stay off of it. It was like falling apart, and we were like climb, you know, 150 feet up this thing. We could have like fallen down and like killed ourselves. And we would sit up there and we would like, you know, smoke cigarettes, and you could see New York City like way off in the distance. It was like, you know, 50 miles away or something like that. And on a clear day, you could see New York, and we would like look at New York from this observation tower. It was like the size of your thumbnail. Like it looked like Oz, like off in the distance. And we would just sit there and be like, you know, someday we're gonna like live there and like be cool guys. Like whatever we're gonna do, make some music and.
You did it.
Yep.
What does music do for people?
Music is a service and a science and an art. It's the mother of poetry and the daughter of life itself. It's absolutely primeval. There's not a single culture on earth that doesn't have some form of music. You know, I feel really lucky that we get to do this for a living, because you just look out at the crowd when you're playing, and it is connecting with people on so many different levels. People who just don't know anything about your music are just responding to it on a fundamentally human level. And then you've got people who are there to like hear specific songs, and you're like evoking these memories for them. One of the most gratifying things about being in this band these days is like you look out and the whole front row is like little kids, like 7-year-olds to like 20-year-olds, and they just got their like, you know, little chins on the barrier, and they're like kind of mesmerized by what we're doing. I think that goes back to the fact that, you know, there's nothing automated about what we're doing. It's completely, you know, that's sort of a spectacle now, watching people, you know, actually just perform music in a prodigious, prolific kind of way. It's fun watching, you know, like young people, and they're sort of like there with their parents, And it's sort of like that thing happens where they're like, oh, well, Dad loves this band and Mom loves this band. Here we are singing it. And they're sort of like, oh, wow, and before we ever play the hit, and then we play the hit, and then they turn, to their parents and like connect, this is the song we play in the car, and it's a beautiful way to.
I like it when you see sometimes you'll see the cool young kid that doesn't want to like us, they're like sitting there like, man, but then like halfway through the show they're like, you got them, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It is fun though, like to see all the different ages of people that come out to see the band now, and that's very cool.
We somehow struck a very universal thing. Two Princes and Little Miss Can't Be Wrong. And the album, Pocket Full of Kryptonite, again and again I've heard people say, when I was a kid, I didn't want to listen to like my parents' stuff, and my parents didn't want to listen to the grunge stuff that I was into, but we could put the Spin Doctors on. That was like the tape that we could listen to in the car, and everybody, like our parents and us, like we all like agreed, like that's what we wanted to listen to. And I honestly, like I'm not really sure how we did that. Probably the drumming. Probably has a lot to do with the fantastic drumming. Somehow we have this kind of like ageless, timeless sort of appeal for people, and that's just really we got lucky there, I think.
And I think the music lives on. If you look at the kind of songs that seem to live on and stand the test of time, it's stuff that's not overly produced or overly like sonically to a certain generation. Like certain things just, you can tell like this is from that. I mean, obviously people hear us and it takes them back to the 90s, but it's just like the music is just sort of organic rock and roll.
Yeah.
And and we got lucky and recorded like really good versions of those songs, and they still sound great on the radio,
There's no gimmicks.
Yeah, and so it's, I mean, we didn't really expect that, to be honest. Even when you have a big hit, you don't expect that, but you really don't expect it to sort of have the lasting power that these songs have had. Yeah, I mean, we certainly weren't trying to have a hit record. I mean, we honestly, like I can tell you 100%, that was not on our mind. Like we really just, when we went to make that first record, we really wanted to make a great record. I mean, that was really the only thing that was important to us. Nobody was thinking about like that we were going to have like this big hit. It wasn't until later that became even a possibility. And only after the record company told us to get off the road and go home and make another record, because there were no hits on the record. And at that point, we had been on the road for about 1.5 years, and we'd seen like some of these songs become real popular within our fan base, And I remember being in this meeting, we were all sitting around with all the heads of Epic Records, whole band, our management. And we were just like, why don't you try like a song like maybe Two Princes or Jimmy Olsen or Little Miss? They seem to really, you come to our show, people are singing along, No, you guys need to come home, make a new record, get off the road. And so afterwards, we sat outside of Sony Music just down the street over there, and our manager was like, I'm telling you guys, something's going to happen. Let's just go back on the road. I've seen this before. We're feeling it. We're feeling a buzz. And we did that. And like a few months later, a station up in Vermont, WEQX, Jim McGuinn was the DJ there, started playing Little Miss. It went to #1. He wrote a letter to the president of Epic, Richard Griffiths, and that lit the fire, and then the thing blew up. So then we knew, okay, maybe we're going to have some hits, but we were not thinking about that at all in the process of making that record.
We put Two Princes out, and everybody at radio and some people at the label were just like, what is this supposed to be? They're like, it's not rock and roll. It's not like R&B. It's like nothing. It's just like this thing in like the middle of like, limbo, because, it didn't really fit into a category. But, those are the kinds of things that if they do get a chance, those are the things that really kind of take off, because they're sort of, they've got an originality to them, as original as anything can ever be.
And it was different, you got to remember, like, this was right when grunge was really rocking. Our record came out a week before Nirvana's Nevermind came out, and then of course Nirvana record blew up, and it really helped us a lot, because it opened the door. All of a sudden, rock was back on the radio, but it was more bands like Pearl Jam and Nirvana and that heavier stuff. But it opened up that lane for us, and when they finally decided to put some money behind us and go for real radio. It stood out because it was different from what was happening. It was still rock, but it was different. We had our own sound, So yeah, I mean, it's pretty amazing, really.
Grunge was all like heavy and dark and some of the coolest music of the era for sure. But we were like kind of like happy and having a good time, and so we called ourselves like the alternative to alternative.
That's right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
That's great.
Aaron, very cleverly, when we were putting our repertoire together early on, he had this very musical way of making sure that we had this kind of varied repertoire. So Aaron was like, we need songs with different tempos and different like tonal landscapes so that our songs don't all sound the same. There's a very musical way of approaching it. It's one thing to be like, we need like different kinds of songs, but to approach it like that is extremely musical, because then you're like, cool, we'll do some stuff in some different time signatures, we'll do some stuff, slower stuff, faster stuff. And then as the lyricist, I added on to that, like, cool, yeah, and we need to have like these different emotional kind of landscapes as well. So we've got songs that our two most popular songs sort of have a happy feel, but Little Miss Can't Be Wrong is a very angry song, and it's not about an ex of mine, it's actually about my dad's ex-wife who was particularly cruel. So if you delve into those lyrics, it's kind of tongue-in-cheek, but it's also kind of an angry song. And Two Princes is like a happy song with sad lyrics, really about a guy who is, not really, unrequited, dealing with like unrequited love. But then you go deeper into it. On the first record, we've got songs like Refrigerator Car.
Your heart is a refrigerator car, it's cold and it never waits.
Shinbone Alley.
All the way down Shinbone Alley.
They are also like really kind of heavy songs. We've got stuff that's as heavy as any of the grunge stuff, but we were also, the stuff that really caught on was sort of our happier, more upbeat stuff. But I do think if I was going to compare us to these grunge bands, I would say that, we sort of have a broader sense of like mood in the band, because we don't just have happy songs, we have angry and sad and different kinds of emotional, we cover all the emotions, happy, sad, etc.
That's great. And any musicians that you particularly like of today?
I mean, there's so many. It's hard to even keep track. It's like, that's the problem. There's such a barrage of like information. I see and hear so many incredible young musicians, and when I do sort of search around, there's tons of great bands and artists out there making really creative stuff and playing instruments as well. I mean, there's obviously a lot of stuff that's computer based, and that's cool too. I mean, I just think like we're at this point in music where modern sort of music, rock and roll, whatever you want to call it, jazz. It's, as time goes on, there's just so much more to sort of fuse together now. So a lot of the stuff I hear, the concepts of these young musicians and writers is just stuff that we would never think of. And I find it really inspiring. So I'm very, very optimistic about the future of music. I'm not as optimistic about how the business aspect of it. It's always been hard, and it was really hard when we first started, but there was sort of this formula for a band back then. As hard as it was, if you got a band together, wrote some good songs, and had a really good unique sound. That's hard to achieve right there, but do that. Go out and play a bunch of gigs, get a following in your local town, get a record deal, get on the radio, get on MTV, boom. I mean, really, really hard.
It's easy.
Really hard to
Piece
do.
of cake.
Really hard to do, but it sounds like I see so many artists in New York that if that formula was still around, you had a real chance back then, but it's not, it's just different now. And I think with all the social media, I think a lot of people feel like they have to not only be a great musician or writer, but they have to be this social media personality. And it's whatever, I'm not judging it, but for me, if I was going to give any advice to like a young musician or a young band or a young artist, whatever, I would say, just like what we've said before, find your own niche. Don't try to copy anybody else. We've already got all that, and bring it to the people. Because I do think that ultimately, for getting music and making a living, you have to go out. I think it's a mistake to think that you're going to be able to do it all from home on your phone. Not to say that some people haven't, and that's totally valid. But I think, go out there and play for people. You're going to be better anyway as an artist if you're out there getting reaction from a crowd. But I'm super optimistic about the state of music. I think it's great.
I like, honest to God, I don't listen to a ton of music. Aaron listens to a lot of music, but a lot of time, that most people spend listening to music, I spend making music. When I'm not making music, a lot of times I'd rather like read a book or, fool around with a camera, play some chess, or, I just like to take a little break. One of the things that that Eric Schenkman, our guitar player, early on, by the time I met Eric, he was 25 and I was 20. He'd been playing guitar since he was like 14 years old. And I was like, don't you like, Led Zeppelin and the Rolling Stones and the Who? And he was like, I've been playing all those songs in bars since I was like 14 years old. He's like, I don't really listen to rock and roll anymore for like inspiration for rock and roll. I was like, what do you listen to? And he was like, Ornette Coleman and John Coltrane, like bebop, Charlie Parker. And I was like, that's so cool, because if you're taking these ideas from somewhere else, you're bringing them back to rock and roll, you're gonna have like, these kind of fresh ideas. And I took that and I started to try and just go to like an art museum and like look at a Titian painting or look at some ancient Greek sculpture or something like that, and then try and bring, obviously I'm not going to write a song about an ancient Greek sculpture, but to use those kinds of things to just like freshen your mind and then, come back to what you're doing. So, a lot of times I don't listen to a ton of music.
Well, this has been awesome.
Thank you for having us.
Great. Congratulations on the new record. It's so good.
Thank you.
So good.
Thank
and
you.
I look forward to having your wife here sometime.
Yeah.
Across the street.
Yeah, she's very funny and way cooler than I am. Everybody likes Lindsay. You like Lindsay more than me, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Everybody likes Lindsay more than me.
Aw.
See
We'll have to
guys.
play next time.
Sure.
All right, yeah. Okay, if you'll have us back,
We're
we'll
here.
definitely. I didn't know
We're here.
we were supposed to play. I have guitars. I have 20 of them. I could have brought them all. Played them all at the same time.
Well, we'll be here.
To hear more of this interview, visit our podcast, Life Minute TV, on iTunes and all streaming podcast platforms.